So I've done quite a few dub comparisons on this channel. After the tier lists I have been doing, as well as the video I did last time, I figured why not combine these two elements. The basic idea with this tier list is I'm going to be rating all the dubbed movies that were directed by... Now, I want to note that I'm not going to be comparing to how faithful it is to the source material because I don't know Japanese. It's really more about the idea of how much do I enjoy these dubs. That is what this tier list is going to be all about. So without further ado, let's get into this. So we start with directorial debut, The Castle of Cagliostro. One of the few movies on this list to not be made by... So this one has two dubs. We got the streamlined dub, and we got the manga dub. Well, I do rather like them, as if it wasn't for just the chance of figuring out that this movie had two different dubs, I probably wouldn't have even got into this little hobby of mine. So, I'm very grateful for that. But as for the dubs themselves, well, I'm a much bigger fan of the manga dub. I'd put up there as S. I will admit there's some bias, as this was my introduction to the character, and, well, this is kind of the performance that I've been comparing every other Lupin to. Until I discovered Tony Oliver as well as Richard Epcar in the gang, because, yeah, I think they somehow found a way to surpass the Castle of Cagliostro cast. I will admit, the cast of the streamlined dub would go on to make some better Lupin properties. The two episodes that I reviewed last time, as well as their dub of The Mystery of Mamo.
It's obvious what happened. We know who must have told him about this place. A certain redhead with a motorcycle and a skin-tight black leather jumpsuit on.
It feels like this one was a bit more of a starting ground to kind of get used to the characters and see if it'll get anywhere. Streamline, I'd give it a B. There was better stuff to come, and this dub is okay, and there's far worse on the list, so I think this is one that fits right in the middle. Now, I guess to be really specific, there are technically two manga dubs, as there is a more family-friendly edit of this dub, but personally, I like the swearing. It just feels like it kind of fits more in line with the character that's being portrayed in this movie. Either that or maybe I'm just biased. I can't really say it's nostalgia goggles, as at the most I only saw this movie for the first time maybe 10 years ago. Warriors of the Winds. Now this is where we start getting into some more interesting stuff. The Warriors of the Winds and Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. I always call it Warriors of the Winds, but it's Warriors of the Wind. I know I'm gonna get a fair bit of flack for this, but in all honesty, I kind of look at this movie as like pizza. Sometimes you want a great homemade pizza that takes all day to make. And other times, you want a frozen pizza. Either way, I'd say it's a good time, but it all really depends on the quality that you want out of it. Well, I will admit, Warriors of the Winds is by no means an amazing dub.
Hi! I finally found your cloud climber. Hey! I found your glider. My name is Prince Milo. I'm from the city of Placida, where my father was the king. I should introduce myself first. I'm Asbel from the land of Pejite. I'd like to thank you for saving me.
Are we in heaven?
No, Sandra, we're not in heaven. We're right underneath the toxic jungle.
You sure?
Mm-hmm. Look, we fell from up there, through the quicksand.
What is this place?
You're not going to believe this. You're actually beneath the toxic jungle.
Beneath the jungle?
Yeah, see that? We fell through that hole up there, along with a bunch of sand.
In fact, in terms of faithfulness, this one gets an F- compared to everything else on this list. As there's like a good 20 minutes missing, and for some odd reason they felt the need to change the names of most of the characters.
Uncle Yuppa, may I please have him?
Of course, Sandra.
Father is dying.
King Seal? Greetings, Lord Yuppa. What are you doing up there, Axel? Her Royal Highness Queen Selina is now going to address you.
But like I say, it's a frozen pizza. Sometimes they just want to pop it in the oven and just enjoy a small little time, but you know that there's better options out there for you. Yeah, I guess I'd put it on par with the Castle of Cagliostro, but I'd be more interested to see Warriors of the Winds again than the streamlined dub of Castle of Cagliostro. You know, maybe it'd make more sense to put this in C, actually. As for Nausicaa, this I feel like is just one of those movies that after you watch, your life just becomes like 0.01% better for having seen it. When it comes to dubs, there are some very dedicated fan bases I find. One, which I'll be getting to later, and the Way dub of Castle in the Sky. Now, when it came to Nausicaa, I said the movie was so good that it just kind of transcended even a mediocre dub. It was a nice frozen pizza. You know it's better, but at the same time, what you're getting is still pretty good. The Way dub... Castle in the Sky is my favorite film on this entire tier list. I just want to mention that right away. And I think a big part of that has to do because of the second Disney dub. Just to kind of explain a little bit. So there are technically two Disney dubs. The first one had a rescore by, as well as some added dialogue. However, later the score was reverted back to the original and the extra lines were missing. One of these days I'd love to see that dub to do a complete comparison of all Castle in the Sky English dubs. But then again, people tell me there is a variation of the Way dub that involved a narration over the credits, but I have no idea. I mean, it's a hard enough dub to find on its own. So, as for the Disney dub, as I mentioned, probably one of my favorite movies of all time, S tier. But as for the Way dub, C or D? This is a good question. Yeah, I'd probably put it in the same category as Streamline's Cagliostro. Maybe even just a little worse. I mean, probably somewhere in the middle, but lower C. As I've said countless times, it's not good. And dang it, Jeff Winkless was robbed.
Thanks to your carelessness, the secret message was decoded. This mission is mine.
I'm very happy that he was able to work under a much better director in Carl Masick in later projects. And yes, I'm probably one of the few YouTubers out there that gets excited whenever I see Jeff Winkless in the credits. My Neighbor Totoro. And this right here is where the second dedicated fan base of the dub comes from. The third one I'm just going to say is Evangelion. There's so many people that love that original dub, and well, I guess it's just such a touchstone. It'd be like if there was a redub of Pokemon Indigo League. It would just never be good enough in people's eyes. But anyways, this is a rather fascinating one. In a ways, this was my first introduction to the works of... Don't ask me why, but My parents bought this movie many years ago, and I still have just one distinct memory where it was a snow day and my sister was watching this movie. And she kind of said that I kind of had to be a little older in order to understand it. And as such, I always kind of viewed this movie as a bit of a rite of passage. Which is rather interesting, as I feel like it's very much a movie dedicated to those long summers or just the fun spirit of childhood. This movie never really ranked all that highly, either dubs, in all honesty. Childhood is just not really a time that I want to go back to for a multitude of reasons, which I've told my therapist as well as several other people why. But as I get older, I kind of realize that maybe it's more about the idea of like, hey, remember when you just had so much free time where you could just spend your days just rolling around in the grass outside? And actually, come to think of it, the generations that grew up on iPhones even know about having that much free time. Yeah. This is a dub tier list, not a take a dump on the next generation. I've got plenty of time for that as I get older. That also seems to be a rite of passage. But, between the two dubs, I'm honestly a bigger fan of the streamlined version. I will admit it's the first one I saw, but, well, it's probably, when was the first time I saw it? Maybe it was like a year or two after I saw the Castle of Cagliostro. I just remember I was at least in my teens, or maybe even my 20s when I first started watching this. So I really don't have a nostalgia for it. But at the same time, I just have a bias for it. I just feel like this one was just the better dub. I think I'll put this in an A tier. Not so much because I think the dub is inferior to these up here. It's not a movie I return to very often. And the Disney dub put in the same category, I would say. And because there are so many people that have asked me in my dub comparison video, I will answer that one question. Does the cat bus actually speak? Yes. The Disney dub isn't necessarily a slouch, but just a slightly bigger fan of this one. Okay. So you'll notice that there's 3 pictures of Kiki's delivery service here. So this is the Streamline, this is the Disney, and then this is the re-edit of the Disney version. The Streamline version of this movie kind of surprised me. Much like My Neighbor Totoro, I feel like it's very much on par with the Disney version. They're both good, and unlike My Neighbor Totoro, I just enjoy this movie a fair bit more. I think it just kind of comes down to, I relate more to the idea of being left alone and having to resort to my own devices to be able to make my way in the world. The idea of a long road trip where all I just had was the destination. But even more than that, I just kind of relate more to the growing up aspect rather than the, hey, wouldn't it be nice to go back? No, I don't want to go through that again. This captures more of a time in my life that I rather enjoyed. And that's how I feel about the movie. I think I'm getting off subject again. The other thing to note about this movie as well is that the Disney dub also has 2 versions. And I have actually seen both. And I'm a bigger fan of the original Disney dub. Somehow the audio quality isn't as good in the redub, and, well, I kind of like the additional music as well as the rescore, and well, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna get some flack for this, but I like the new intro and outro song. I don't know who sang it, but she has a lovely voice, and there's like a little bit of nostalgia for it. Once again, it's when it came to discovering these movies, it wasn't until I was much older. In fact, it was like a few friends of mine that kind of got me into it, and it's like, okay, well, let's see what the next one is, and then just started finding these at thrift stores. Yeah, still got the price tag on here. How much is it? 99 cents. And imagine if I put this up on eBay, it'd probably go for at least 50 bucks. Putting a tier for all 3 dubs. So as for the streamlined version, probably put it in A tier. It's pretty good, but I still like the original Disney one a lot more. And then as for the redub, well, this is difficult as it's mostly like the Disney version, but it's kind of removed some of the elements. I think I'll put it up there with the streamlined version, actually. Porco Rosso. On the whole, I'd say this movie is underrated. I'd put it up there with, like, The Great Mouse Detective in terms of the Disney library. It just seems like it's a movie that just flies under the radar, but yet it still has the same care and dedication that's put into a lot of other movies from the same company at the time. But as for the dubs themselves, this... I will admit, the streamlined dub is not perfect, but I think it gets the job done and a whole lot better than the way dub of Castle in the Sky.
Boy, am I happy to see that you are human. I was afraid that you might be one of those angels or something.
Generally, I'd say the Disney dub is better, but it is a very close race, because there are just a few moments that I kind of prefer the streamlined version for.
I'd much rather be a pig than a fascist.
The age of the freewheeling adventurer is over. Nationalism and patriotism may seem boring, but they're all that are left.
I don't have time. Look outside the window behind us. Don't be obvious. The fascist secret police. He saw you and said, "Cast not pearls before swine."
There is this bit character.
He's American, but his grandmother is a quarter Italian. Anyway, if you don't stop the pig, you'll all be broke before you know it.
I just love that voice. I don't know what it is. And on top of that, the voice of Piccolo in the streamlined version.
Father in heaven, thank you for giving us bread and a shelter and jobs just when a greater company was about to go kaput. Please forgive our sins, especially for using a women's hands to make a fighting ship.
Amen.
That took me by surprise. And that's one of the things I love about doing these dub comparisons is seeing where things are massively different. Because if it's just the same thing but with, say, A-list actors as opposed to A-list voice actors, then I feel like the comparison is really just more down the personal preference. I mean, I guess it's all down the personal preference, but it's a little harder to be objective about because it's just like, oh, you got the same performance, just a different actor. I feel like I'm just going all over the place. So, let's see. Do I want to put this in S? I mean, it is really good. Both versions are really good, and I do love the movies, not so much as these that I put up there, but they're still pretty good. Yeah, I think I'll do that. I'll put the Disney dub on S, and then I'll put the streamlined version in A, because it's really good, but the Disney dub is just a little bit better. Princess Mononoke. Right. From here on out, this is where we get into only one English dub of the film. At least that I know of. This is the thing I find rather perplexing, so there is a feature on here where they talk to the voice actors. And during the feature, there are little clips that are interspersed to basically say, oh, I love this scene of the movie, or oh, this scene was so powerful and stuff like that. But yet, something about the clips and what's in the actual movie are two pretty different things.
Why did you stop me from killing her? Tell me while you're still alive. Why did you stop me from killing her? Tell me before you die.
I didn't want them to kill you. That's why. Because you would have been killed. That's why.
I'll kill you for saving that stupid gun woman! Ah! And I'm not afraid of you. I should kill you for saving her. Ah!
So I'm wondering if perhaps there is a different version of this movie. Perhaps if I had the original VHS copy of it, there might be something different. But as for the movie itself, honestly, I think this is magnum opus. It's not my personal favorite. I don't really do well with blood and gore, and this is about as intense as it gets, especially with the decapitation, the dismemberment, just blood. It's disgusting, but yet I can appreciate that that's put in there to really just hammer on the message that is put into this movie. And hey, I mean, even just kind of ignoring the darker, gorier aspects, I think this is probably, on a technical level, the best movie that has put out. So, at this point, I think I'll just be rating the movie itself, because there's only one dub, I think.
The woman is evil, and there's no one who can stop me from killing her. I'll cut your throat open, human, that I won't ever have to listen to your voice again.
You're beautiful. So lovely.
I really want to know if there are two different dubs of this. I mean, I know it's the same actors in both clips, but, well, I did kind of like the performance that was in the other clips rather than what's actually in there. Well, I kind of put this up there with Nausicaa as like one of those movies where I feel like your life just gets a little bit better having watched it. Spirited Away. And yes, I am the hipster that has it on VHS. In fact, there's a bit of a crazy story behind this, so it kind of got to the point where, like I said, it was friends that kind of introduced me to the works of, and one of them was just like, yeah, Spirited Away, it's a fantastic movie, and, well, wouldn't you know that there was a online thrift store that they were able to buy the movie from. And you got the job done, but the tape was a little scratchy. And then, like, 3 weeks later, I found it at a thrift store for 49 cents. But I guess the important thing to note is that obviously I was aware of work. I mean, I had My Neighbor Totoro, and at that point I have seen the movie we're going to be talking about next, as well as a good chunk of Castle in the Sky. Took me years to remember the name of it, and then when I did, it was fantastic to see the whole thing once again. But Spirited Away. Sure, I'm probably going to get some shtick for this, but I think this movie's overrated. Don't get me wrong, it's good. I mean, it's impressive that it won all these awards and whatnot. But, like I said, I don't really do too well with the blood, and this movie is gross. Like the Ren and Stimpy kind of gross. Not really in the Princess Mononoke gross, where it's there to hammer in a message. It's, yeah. Or maybe it kind of is? Not really my thing. Dub is fine. It's a good movie. It's just, I would be more tempted to watch these other ones before Spirited Away. Well, actually, no, that's not fair. I'd be more tempted to watch Spirited Away than My Neighbor Totoro. One of these days, I gotta read the book that this movie is based off of and perhaps do a bit of a movie-book comparison. Kind of like what I did with the James Bond series, as well as tried to do with Gone with the Wind, but it's kind of hard to really compare a movie when, well, you'd probably just get flagged for like showing the first 5 seconds of it. But then again, that'd probably be the same case with this one. Yeah, either way. This movie, I very much associate with, like, wintertime. Kind of that time where you're just kind of in a cold environment. You're in a warm house. Night has fallen. It's dark. And you just want something to kind of relax to. Yeah, I'd say this movie is kind of relaxing. But even more than that, there's something stimulating in its imagery. I'm not really sure if I'm really explaining how I feel about this movie, but I guess comfort. I feel comforted by this movie. And I guess even Porco Rosso and the few times I watch My Neighbor Totoro or Kiki's Delivery Service. But then there are other movies where I'm just like, I want to watch something epic, and that's what some of the other ones we talked about were for. So, Nausicaa, Castle in the Sky. If I'm really feeling brave, Princess Mononoke. But, how's the movie Castle? I gotta put it in the same category as Kiki's Delivery Service, but is it the better Kiki or the lesser Kiki? Oh, this is difficult. I think I'll put it in A. I'd put it on par with the streamlined version of Porco Rosso. And I guess that kind of speaks a fair bit into how I feel about Ponyo. Got an HBO Max subscription, and it has all the movies on there. And it's just kind of one of those movies where I'm like, well, there's good animation. Then again, that's like watching a Star Wars movie and saying the special effects are great. I feel like that's just kind of the bare minimal bar that's been set for both of these franchises. I'm just going to say companies to keep it easier. D. It's good. It's got good animation, but I've got like no desire to watch it again. The Wind also... Nope. I always call this one The Wind Also Rises, but it's just The Wind Rises. I'm probably getting it mixed up with The Sun Also Rises. Which is a real shame that I can't seem to get it right, because, dang it, I love this movie. And the main reason I don't have a physical copy of it is I haven't been able to find one yet. I know I could probably order one from online, but I like going around to stores and whatnot and trying to order it. Perhaps I could pick up a copy of Barnes & Noble's now that I'm thinking about it. But anyway, I'm trying to figure out how to describe this movie. In ways, it kind of reminds me of an epic movie like Lawrence of Arabia or The Ten Commandments, Ben-Hur. These just big, epic movies. And, well, it's weird that I would really call this an epic story, but it's really more about the idea that the emphasis is on the characters. There's just something very classical 50s and 60s filmmaking in this one that I just absolutely love. And then sprinkle a little bit of Kiki's Delivery Service in there that reminds me a lot of this fantastic book I read called East of Eden, where somehow, I mean, there are like fantastic things that happen, but all within a realm of possibility that it can happen to anybody. But yet, it's not so much about the fantastic adventure, it's more about how the characters are just living their day-to-day lives in somewhat more extraordinary circumstances. And I can definitely say, if you ever get the chance, watch this movie in black and white. It just really sells that old film feel. And I know it seems weird to say, but probably one of the other things I love about that old film feel is the idea that it feels like it takes a lot out of the day. It's a movie that you watch on a Sunday afternoon because you don't really have anything else to do but just get engrossed in a fantastic story. I love this movie. What can I say? I love this movie. It's hard to recommend because of the subject matter and, well, the pacing is all over the place, but dang it, I absolutely love it. The Boy and the Heron. I feel a bit like an idiot, as for a good chunk I thought it was called The Boy and the Heroine. And no, I'm not talking about the drug. I'm talking about a female hero. After all, we are talking about the works of... And he is very big in the strong female characters. And if somehow you've seen all the other movies up to this point and you have not gotten that impression, I'm very curious as to what life is like for you. Trying to figure out how to describe this movie. I thought Howl's Moving Castle was a bit abstract, but it feels like I'm comparing Salvador Dali to Jackson Pollock. At least with Dali, I can look at it and kind of get some semblance of a picture and whatnot. I look at a Pollock and I'm like, okay, this is art. It's random, it's all over the place, but yet, why does it work? I don't get it. I'm still trying to figure out how I really feel about this movie, in all honesty. I feel like it's a movie that I have to watch at least like 3 or 4 times just to kind of understand what happened. And, well, sometimes I kind of like movies like that. Take The Mystery of Mamo, the very first Lupin the Third movie. I really liked the abstractness of it all. The idea that you're almost part of an otherworldliness. Almost like you're taking drugs without having to worry about some sort of coming down from a high or worrying about how your body is going to react to such things in your system. Or maybe it would make more sense to say it's a bit more like in a dream world where you're a little bit on the sick side. Not like a fever dream. Well, there are definitely some fever dream sequences in this movie. And I think that's one of the other reasons I have a hard time categorizing it is... It was one of those things where I saw it was rated PG-13 and I'm just kind of like, oh, come on, how bad can it be? And then it's like, oh, wow, this is a lot more graphic than I thought it would be. I can see why it was rated as much. But I think probably the thing I find the craziest of all is looking through the names of the voice actors on this one. I find it absolutely nuts that Barbara Goodson had a voice acting role in this movie. She was the original voice of Patsu in the Way dub of Castle in the Sky, all the way back in... Okay, I don't have the exact numbers, but let's see. The movie came out in 84. I'm pretty sure the dub came shortly after that, either 85 or 86. So the idea that she has been doing voiceover work for that long, and it almost seems to be a bit like a bookend. The idea that she was there almost from the beginning, and now she's there almost at the end. That it just blew my mind. It's a pity that Jeff Winkless has unfortunately passed at this point, so he wasn't able to lend his incredible talents to this movie. You know, that'd be interesting, imagining how Jeff Winkless would have portrayed the main character's father.
That's not the way to go about it. If you rush things, you'll end up losing everything.
Or maybe if he portrayed the voice of the Heron.
They're dropping like dead sparrows. How very dumb, these Earthlings. They really think they can fight me?
That's about the only male characters I can think of. I'm not sure if he would work so well as the creator at the end.
Come. There's something I must show you. This is the Black Stone. It wasn't built on Earth. It amazes me, but this beautiful stone has been awaiting the return of its king for 700 years. Or has your esteemed family forgotten even that fact?
I'm not even sure how to describe that character. Like I say, this movie is just like really out there. It's something I like it for, but just wish it didn't have to be so gory. I don't handle the gore very well. At this point, I've only really, seen it all the way through to the end once. But, is it so much because of a good dub, or is it because it's a good movie? I think I put it in S tier. So, yeah, that is probably one of the most niche tier lists I have ever done. It'd be one of those things where I would just love to hear your thoughts on it, but, well, I guess if you wanted the basic idea about what each dub I talked about was about, I have done comparison videos on all of them, which are on this channel. If you're interested, I could leave a link in the description. Not really sure if it's considered a faux pas to plug your own channel like that, but anyways, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. Or even if you just haven't seen all of the dubs that have a side-by-side, maybe if you're a big fan of one of the dubs of My Neighbor Totoro, tell me why you prefer one dub over the other. If you're a bigger fan of the other Castle in the Sky dub. Still trying to figure out why, because it just seems like it's mostly nostalgia driving that one, but I don't know, maybe people have their reasons. If there was a better director, I would agree with it. But, I think I'll call it there. Till next time, keep having fun.